One of the core sort of realizations I had was when you look at comparative psychology, which is the study of comparing intellectual and behavioral abilities between different animals. And what I found most interesting is when looking at the big brain changes that emerged and looking at the intellectual abilities that seemed to have emerged at certain points in evolutionary history, what seems like a suite of different intellectual capacities can actually be understood as different applications of one sort of algorithmic operation. And that merges what seems like a litany of sort of arbitrary changes into sort of a coherent story. So I'll give an example of this. One of the key things that seems to have emerged in early mammals, there are sort of three main new abilities that the evidence suggests we got around 150 million years ago. We see this thing called vicarious trial and error emerge. Even rats have evidence of being able to imagine possible futures, and the neuroscience studies of that are really, really cool. We see episodic memory. So there's lots of good evidence that all mammals, including rats, can re-render a memory of a past event in their life. And we see counterfactual learning. There's some really clever experimental paradigms where you can see a rat consider taking an alternative past choice. And so these might seem like different abilities, but if we take the sort of AI lens where we try to reduce everything to what is the algorithm being implemented, these are really all different applications of simulating. These are
Yeah.
all rendering a state of the world that's not the current one. And so then if we go and we look at what actually changed in the brain of mammals, we see that really only one new brain structure emerged, this thing called the neocortex. And so this helps us now piece together a first approximation, which is it seems to be the case that the neocortex emerged, and from the neocortex came these three new applications of the ability of simulation. And more it comes together, the more we actually look at what does the neocortex do. There's a lot of really interesting ways you can see how the neocortex is highly involved in things like simulation. There's also great studies on perception, mammalian perception. A lot of people refer to mammalian perception as a constrained hallucination, which also has really nice synergies with this idea that all the neocortex does is render a world model, so on and so forth. So that's just an example of the value of merging these things together. Takes something that seems very different and realize it's actually related. So